back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, September 12th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help create a super chat that I will acknowledge during the live broadcast, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining, between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. We put out content, so whatever contribution you can make to the show means the world to us. And also the other way of helping out the show is by going to the link, gsmcpodcast.net. And like I said, we appreciate any contribution that you guys can make to our shows. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. And the intro of the show went so much better than it did yesterday when I just could not talk to start the show, but that was good. So we're already off to a better start. But let's get into what we're going to discuss. So we're going to talk about the Bills-Dolphins game tonight. Two AFC East teams going at it. So we will get into that. We will also get into talking about Christian McCaffrey and his status going into the 49ers game against the Vikings this weekend. Then I wanted to just get into, kind of put a bow on week one. Just, my takeaways from the games, quarterback concerns, some teams that have playoff aspirations. So should we be hitting the panic button with them? Kind of like how, Rich Eisen does his overreaction, not an overreaction segment. It's kind of going to be something along the lines of that. Just my overall thoughts on the week and things like that. So we'll get into that. We also will discuss the Giants. Talk about Lawrence Taylor and what he said to Carl Banks at halftime before the Giants had that halftime ceremony where they honored their top 100 players, the 100 seasons of the Giants. What Lawrence Taylor said to Carl Banks. I wanted to get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Steelers quarterback situation once again. I know I went over the Steelers and talked about them yesterday, but just wanted to go over that. And I know I gave you my take on it, but just kind of going back to that topic again a little bit more, because I know we recapped the game, but just what the Steelers should do at the quarterback position moving forward. And it looks like Justin Fields is going to start again on Sunday. So I just wanted to give you my thoughts on that even more. So that's the rundown for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is previewing tonight's AFC East matchup between the Dolphins and the Bills. And this is an exciting game. Both teams had comeback victories in week one. The Dolphins coming back against the Jaguars and the Bills coming back against the Cardinals. Tua and Josh Allen both played very well in those games. And, yeah, this is a big game right out of the gate. I said this yesterday. I mean, this game could, decide playoff seeding down the line. Obviously, these two teams will match up again later in the season in Buffalo, and I wanted to check on when that game actually will be played, because if it's being played in November, December, that's going to be some cold weather. So Yeah, but this is a big game right out of the gate. Yeah, so they'll be playing on November 3rd. So it's the temperature is gonna drop by then. So, but anyways, they're in Miami tonight. This game is gonna be a lot of fun, and like I said, there we go with the voice. Like I said, both quarterbacks played very well on Sunday, and I anticipate that they both are gonna have a good game here. They are going to make their fair share of plays. I think this game is going to be high scoring. So I anticipate that they both will play well. Now, in terms of, some betting stuff when it comes to this game on CBS, where I always go to. So right now the Bills are a 1-point underdog. And actually, no, that's what they opened at, but now they're a 1.5. And the odds on that, the Bills are minus 105. The Dolphins are minus 115. Most people are picking the Bills because they're getting the points. And then in terms of the money line, Bills are plus 110. Dolphins are minus 130. And a lot of people are, at least according to CBS, a lot of people are on the Dolphins money line. And then right now the current over-under is 49. I mean, I do kind of like the over in this game. But, again, I could definitely see this somehow being under. So, yeah, and also when it comes to the defenses, they both force their fair share of turnovers as well. The Dolphins' defense played well against Jacksonville, only gave up 17 points. The Bills, they struggled against Kyler Murray in that offense. And then on special teams, they gave up that kickoff return by DJ Dallas. So, and both teams right now, they're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to rushing yards. I mean, again, the year just started. The Bills rushed for 124 yards last week. Dolphins rushed for 128. Now, I didn't bring this up, but Raheem Mostert, he's out for this game already. Also, Devon Achane was also on the injury report. So, and I think it was a game time decision for him. So that's something to keep an eye on. And Achane is a good player for them. It's just can't stay healthy. So I'm looking on Sleeper right now, my fantasy app, and yeah, dealing with an ankle injury. But the latest, this is from a half hour ago. He'll work out pregame. Optimism he plays. So he's dealing with a sprained ankle, but there's some optimism that he will play. Jalen Wright, their rookie running back, who wasn't active last week, could be making his debut. But this could be a game where they rely upon Jeff Wilson. So, he's still in that crowded backfield. So, he's definitely he's going to be a factor regardless if Achane plays or not tonight. So, but yeah, no, it should be an interesting game. But the other thing I wanted to get to is, you see how on the segment title, it's Can Miami Break Buffalo's Streak? So if you go back to the second time these two teams met in 2022, turn off on me. They've won every single game. They won the playoff game. Now, Skylar Thompson did play in that game, but the Bills won that, and they swept the season series last year. So I believe you got to go all the way back to, I think it was week 2 of 2022. That's the last time the Dolphins beat the Bills. And last year, they started off the season hot. Then they went to Buffalo, and Buffalo destroyed them. I think 48-20 was the final score. And then last year they played each other final week of the regular season, final game of the regular season. They played on that Sunday night of Week 18. And it was a close game, but the Bills ended up winning that game. And that's what led to the Dolphins going to Kansas City, and the Bills got the 2 seed. So, that's why I'm saying this is a big game. So, for me though, I like the Bills to win this game. I think they're going to continue to own the Dolphins here. I think Josh Allen's going to have a monster game tonight. And, he's still trying to, build up this rapport with his new receivers. Keon Coleman had a decent game for them last week. I'd like to see Dalton Kincaid get more involved. See what kind of game James Cook's going to have. But, Josh Allen, I think, will play well. And like I said, I think Tua's going to play well. I expect the receivers to do their thing. Tyreek Hill, of course, he's going to make his fair share of plays tonight as well. This definitely is going to be a high-scoring game. I would lean towards that. But, again, wouldn't surprise me if that's not the case. I actually wanted to check the status of Jalen Waddle because, he was evaluated for a concussion. But I don't see the questionable next to his name in fantasy. So I guess he's good to go. So that's big. I expect this to be a close game. But I like I said, I think the Bills win. I'm gonna say 30-27. That's gonna be my score prediction. Like I said, I think it'll be high scoring, but I think the Bills will ultimately take the win there. But we'll see. Nothing will surprise me. Both teams I have making the playoffs, so it's going to be a fun game. But let's see if the Dolphins can end that streak. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you have winning this game? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show now, and when we come back, we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey and his status ahead of the 49ers game against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to get into talking about Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers, talk about his status ahead of the 49ers Week 2 matchup against the Vikings in Minnesota. So, yeah, it was interesting because, you thought that he was going to play because it seemed like, because he said he was confident that he was going to play. At least that's what I was reading. And then he got ruled out. And it was a surprise. And Jordan Mason goes out there and plays really well. So the 49ers didn't miss McCaffrey, at least in that game. But now, I mean, I'm seeing different things. Like, oh, McCaffrey's going to be week to week. He could be out for a while. But then, it's possible that he could play this week. So I don't know. I really don't know what the deal is there. But right now, he's dealing with a calf strain and Achilles tendinitis. So not good. Not good stuff to hear there. But McCaffrey has been listed as questionable, but he did state to the media his availability, media availability, that he was planning to play. So for me, and the other thing I wanted to bring up too is, so Jordan Mason, brought up that he was going to get the start on Friday. Like, he knew that this was happening. But then, Kyle Shanahan kind of shut that down and said, no, not that he was going to start on Friday. He was going to be more involved in the game plan. I think that was what he said, because, they could get in trouble for that. But I wanted to bring that up. But for me, though, this tells me, and I think, most people know this already, but I think it's part of it's they're being very cautious with McCaffrey. And, I did a segment on this in the offseason that, McCaffrey's going to get a heavy workload, but they're definitely going to at times want to pull back a little bit, and not, run him into the ground. Because he's a very important player on this offense. And, they don't want him to be out long term because that would really hurt the 49ers offense. Now, it didn't hurt them this past week, but there's going to be some games that, Jordan Mason is not going to play well. Jordan Mason is not always going to run for, 140 yards. And if the 49ers got to keep throwing the football, they got the playmakers to do it, but, there's going to be games Brock Purdy struggles if it's just going to be him throwing the ball a bunch of times with no running game. Now, they also, mixed in Deebo Samuel, and he could carry the ball out of the backfield, but the 49ers, if they want to, get back to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl this year, Christian McCaffrey has to be healthy. And right now, that's not the case. So, they want to be as cautious as they can be with him. And when he's right, when they feel like he's ready to go, then he's going to play. As much as McCaffrey feels like he can go out there and play, the 49ers, ultimately, they have the final say. And to be honest, with this game against the Vikings, it's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough game, in my opinion, because I think the Vikings, they showed you, I know it was against the Giants, but the Vikings have a good team. They're a well-coached team. They got a good defense. And they got a fair share of playmakers on their offense because they got the best wide receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. We'll see what happens with Jordan Addison because I know he suffered an ankle injury, I believe, in the game against the Giants. Aaron Jones ran the football well for them on Sunday. They got playmakers. And Sam Darnold played well. Now, I'm not saying, Sam Darnold's going to torch the 49ers defense, but it's going to be a tough game, and it's the Vikings' home opener as well. So, that crowd is really going to bring it. And on top of that, I know it was with Kirk Cousins, but the Vikings did upset the 49ers last year. And the 49ers were missing Trent Williams. They were missing Deebo Samuel. Now going into this game, it's likely they're going to be missing Christian McCaffrey. So, and I don't think against the Vikings defense, they're going to see how Jordan Mason played against, they're going to see the film on Jordan Mason against the Jets, and they're going to say, we got to make sure that doesn't happen here. I don't think Jordan Mason is going to have the same game that he had against the Jets against the Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to be ready for that. Also, just because I think the Vikings are a better coached team than the Jets. That's that's also another thing. Brian Flores is their defensive coordinator. That defense is underrated. They got good players. They added Jonathan Grenard. They added Anthony Van Ginkel, who had the pick 6. You still got Harrison Smith. Defense is good. So, but now, the Vikings defense, they go from playing the Giants to now playing the 49ers, who are miles and miles and miles, not even just miles, just another world better than the Giants. They're a Super Bowl team. The Giants right now are a bottom 5 team. So you could also look at it that way. But I just think it's going to be a tough game for the Niners. I don't think the Vikings are going to go down easy. Now, if they rattle Sam Darnold, then, forget what I say. But I like the Vikings defense. And like I said, the Vikings have a lot of playmakers on offense. So, and Sam Darnold played well. So we'll see how it goes. Excuse me. So, still dealing with this right now. But anyways, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it. And if McCaffrey doesn't play, it is what it is. The season's still very young. We just got started here. So, if the 49ers lose a game or two without him, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal because, he's going to come back. I'm confident that he's going to come back at some point. I mean, maybe he does come back this week. But they want to make sure that he's right. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting the 49ers to go 17-0. Like, if they lose here, it's not the end of the world. They last year they lost to the Browns with P.J. Walker starting at quarterback. And they lost to the Vikings last year when they were missing a couple of key guys. So, but I do think this will be a tough game. I like I said, I don't expect Jordan Mason to have the game like he did against the Jets against the Vikings defense. But we'll see. We'll see. But I do... Now, from a fantasy perspective, not great for fantasy owners when it comes to McCaffrey. But I think how the 49ers are approaching this, I think it's the right thing. It's the right thing. Because you do not want to lose this guy for the season. So, we'll keep an eye on it as we go. Tomorrow is Friday. So we will be doing our picks tomorrow for the games. We'll take a look at the college football slate as well. I didn't really get to that this week because I just mainly wanted to focus on NFL. But there was a lot of stuff that happened in college too. Notre Dame lost badly. That was not good. The Texas-Michigan game, kind of went how I expected. But in Colorado and Nebraska, that was not really much of a game either. But, yeah, there was just so much stuff that I wanted to cover with the NFL that, now that it's back, college kind of took a quick back seat already. But we'll get into some of the big college football matchups tomorrow when we go over, our picks and things like that. So, yeah, don't worry about that. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about McCaffrey and his status. Do you think he plays on Sunday? How do you feel about how the 49ers are handling his injury? Like I said, you want to make sure he's right. So I don't really have any problems with their approach. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help create a super chat for you. that I will acknowledge during the live broadcast any thoughts or comments that you may have. And it just really makes the show more lively, more entertaining between me and you guys. That's what it's all about. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, and any contribution that you can make to the show means the world to us. And another way to help out the show is also by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. And like I said, any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content each and every day for you guys. So, when we come back from our next break, we will then get into talking about, just kind of putting a bow on week one. Some things to talk about with quarterbacks and, some playoff teams or teams that have playoff aspirations, some bad losses. Is it time to hit the panic button already in week one? So kind of like a, overreaction, not an overreaction type segment. Because we pretty much went through every game in some capacity. Because, there was a lot. And when we get to next week, it's going to be the same thing. But I'm just so happy that football is back. I really missed it. So, yeah, that's what we're going to get into. We're going to put a bow on week one, and I'll just give you some of my my takeaways and, reactions, things like that. So, yeah, that will be the third segment of the show when we come back from break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about week one. Just some takeaways. That's all we've been talking about is week one. But just, kind of some reactions to week one, some takeaways, things like that. So one of the main things is quarterbacks. Because there were quarterbacks that just did not play well in week one. And on one hand, it is week one, but on the other hand, it just might mean, these guys might not be good, and they might not be starting for that much longer for their respective teams. So I did talk about the Giants a lot the other day when I went on my rant. And I'm going to talk about them a little bit in the next segment when I talk about what Lawrence Taylor had to say about their performance on Sunday. But when it comes to the Giants and Daniel Jones, if Daniel Jones does not play well against the Commanders, I think the Giants have to pull the plug. And I said that already. I'm saying it again. They have to pull the plug and do something else. Because I understand he's just coming back from an injury too. But the way it went down on Sunday, some of that didn't really have to do with his injury. So I do think, they got to go in a different direction. That was already going to happen, but it's going to happen a lot sooner, I think, especially if you don't beat a team that they always beat, and that's Washington. So there's that, but we'll get into that more in the next segment once again. The Cleveland Browns. It was a rough week for them. Deshaun Watson did not play well at all. Had a couple of interceptions. I mean, it was not good against the Cowboys. And that's a team that, is going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, as well. So that was, they're kind of in, like, the same weight class, which is something that, many people were talking about with the Giants and the Vikings, at least, from stuff I was listening to after Sunday. And the Browns just did not look like they belonged on the same field as the Cowboys. And that's another, and especially with more things that are coming out, and I'm not going to get into that, but Deshaun Watson is still making headlines now for all the wrong reasons, and it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen at the moment. He's still going to be playing quarterback, but he continues to play like that. They got to pull the plug on him too, and they got to go in a different direction somehow. You're going to have to eat that money, because that was a bad performance by him as well. And this is a team with the Browns that can make the playoffs. The Giants, I already didn't expect them to make the playoffs. Now I expect them to win even less games than I originally had them at, just off of week one. The Browns, they have a good team. They have a good defense. They have playmakers on offense. They could salvage their season. Now, you say, well, they got Jameis Winston. Okay, but you know what? Right now, give me Jameis Winston over this current version of Deshaun Watson. Seriously. If Deshaun Watson's going to play like that, yeah, I'd rather have Jameis. Because you know what? Jameis could... Look, I know the turnovers are a problem. But you know what? Jameis also can keep you in a game. But he can very easily take you out of a game, too. Because look, I mean, threw for a ton of yards. He throws for a ton of yards. He's a gunslinger. But you got to do something. And some people are already saying Joe Flacco's not walking through that door. No, he's not. No, he is not. But you know what? Joe Flacco did that over a quarter of a season. He didn't do that over a full season. Like, how would Joe Flacco have been as the starting quarterback of the Browns at, his older age? Even though, what is he, 38, 39 years old? I mean, but that's old, that's old for a quarterback. How would he have done over the course of a full season as the Browns starting quarterback? It wouldn't have worked. But it was perfect because they got him towards the end of the year, played well, and they made the playoffs. I don't think over the course of a full season that would have worked. But that's just me. They are going to have to make a change if Deshaun Watson continues to play like that. Because this team has the talent. This team can be a playoff team. There's people that think this team can make it to the Super Bowl. Now you're probably saying, yeah, Browns fans. No, there are definitely individuals out there that had the Browns going to the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. But I said it, Deshaun Watson, you're not going to see that player from Houston. That player is long gone. Can he still have good games here or there? Yeah, I think so. But then you're going to have games like this on Sunday. And now they're playing Jacksonville, and they're upset because, of how the game went down in Miami. They had that. Now it's their home opener. Browns got to go there. Yeah, they could be looking at 0-2 right now. And I even picked the Browns on Sunday, too. So, yeah, not looking good there. And then the Panthers, oh boy. It's the way that game went. Like, I know the Saints swept the Panthers last year, but this was really bad. 47-10. Bryce Young went 13 of 30 for 161, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not good. Not good. I would have my hand on that panic button. Well, when it comes to Bryce Young. When it comes to the Panthers, I mean, we already knew the Panthers weren't going to be very good. And then on top of that, Derek Brown, their best player on defense, he's out for the year. I mean, already this Panthers season, we just got things started, and it's way over. But if Bryce Young continues to play like that, I mean, the Panthers are going to be looking for a new quarterback, and it's not good. You know, they brought Dave Canales in to fix Bryce Young because of what he did with Baker Mayfield. And then you see what Baker did the other day against the Commanders, albeit against a bad defense. And you're thinking, maybe Baker is just, maybe Baker doesn't need Canales, but we'll see. Again, it could be some overreaction there. But it's only week 1. Like, you look at the rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams didn't play well. The team still won. Bo Nix didn't play well. Jaden Daniels, showed flashes. We got to see how these guys look more into the season. I mean, Caleb Williams, the Bears won because of special teams and their defense. Caleb Williams only threw for 93 yards. But you know what? As long as they're winning games, you'll be okay with it. You could work through it. So, but I wanted to talk about the Bengals as well, just as a team. Because they lost 16-10. Now they're playing against the Chiefs. They're likely going to start 0-2. Don't hit the panic button on them yet. Because this is what they do. They start off the season slow, but then they're a team that gets hot as we progress through the season. It's just how they lost in week 1. You lose to a Patriots team that is rebuilding. They don't have a lot of playmakers on offense. Rookie head coach. The Bengals are a team that has made it to multiple AFC championship games in recent years. The Bengals should have won on Sunday. Now, they got shut out in the first half. That shouldn't have been the case because Tanner Hudson, I don't know what happened on that play. He has a walk-in touchdown, and he bobbles the ball, and the Patriots end up recovering. Kyle Duggar ends up recovering. So that's points taken off the board. I think they also had another touchdown that got called back because of a penalty. It was not a good game for the Bengals. And I do think they are going to play a better game on Sunday against the Chiefs, although I don't think T. Higgins is playing again. I just don't get it. How did he get hurt already? I know that it happens, but it just, how is he injured already? I don't know. Jamar Chase, I don't know why I got them confused, but Jamar Chase is not on the injury report. So, and hopefully he's more involved in the offense because he only had, 6 receptions for 62 yards. You got to get Jamar Chase the ball more. So, we'll see how it goes against the Chiefs, but that's going to be a tough game. And especially, I know Burrow owns the Chiefs in the regular season. Well, Burrow kind of owns the Chiefs in general, other than the most recent matchup they had against each other when Burrow was playing. The Chiefs Super Bowl from a couple of years ago now. The year before last year. But, the Bengals struggle early on in the season, and you're seeing that again. And I think that's going to continue. Like I said, I think they will play a better game than they did on Sunday, but I don't think that's going to be good enough for a win. We'll talk about that game more tomorrow. That's going to be one of the games I'm going to headline on tomorrow's show. But yeah, don't panic on the Bengals. I still have confidence in them. They're going to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, that's just some takeaways. A lot of quarterback stuff. Also, update on Jordan Love. I think I said this already, but he's week to week. He could be back. He could maybe be back in week 3. But, you also want to make sure that he's good. You don't want to rush him back and then he gets hurt again. Because then that would be really bad. But, we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, those are some of my takeaways. Let me know what you guys think, though. What were some of your reactions from week 1? Again, we're putting a bow on week 1. Let's move on to week 2. I mean, we kind of already have done that with some of the topics covering the game tonight. But that was just, what I wanted to get into in this segment here. So when we come back from our next break, we will get into talking about Lawrence Taylor. And, what he said to Carl Banks at halftime during this, before the ceremony that the Giants had for their top 100 players. So we'll get into that when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about the Giants again. Just some comments that Lawrence Taylor had to say before the ceremony at halftime that the Giants did for their top 100 players. And Lawrence Taylor, by the way, got one of the biggest ovations when I was at the game. Got one of the biggest ovations when they were honoring their history, their players. So that was really cool. But Carl Banks and Bob Papa, they do a podcast, the radio broadcasters for the Giants. Of course, Carl Banks was a former player before my time. It would have been nice to have seen guys like Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks play, but that was way before my time. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't see a couple of Super Bowls, but, maybe I would have liked to have seen LT and Banks play. But this is what Carl Banks had to say recently on their podcast. He said, I could tell you when we were lining up to be introduced as the top 100 players, a guy who never really comments on games because he doesn't watch many of them was Lawrence Taylor. He looked at me, and this is a true story, folks. That's what he said. I'm not saying that. This is a true story, folks. If you want to know what we, the 100 greatest Giants, were thinking at halftime, Lawrence looked at me at halftime and said, Carl, I could pick 22 of us right now and go out and play better than these guys. We'd be in this game. The youngest guy in that line was probably 50 years old. Lawrence Taylor looked at me and said, I can get 22 of us right now and go out there right now. And he said that they would win. They would beat them up. I'm going to say the children version of that, of his statement. And this is a courtesy of an article in the New York Post. I'm trying to see if Banks said anything else. He also said to start your season off looking the way you did on both sides of the ball, you look like you're stuck in 2023. Yeah, because he also talked about, this is where I brought the weight class thing up from before. Banks said that the Vikings are a team that's in the Giants' weight class. Because, Sam Darnold is their quarterback. So, yeah, they got a good defense. They got the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. But this was a game that myself and many Giant fans thought, hey, they can maybe win this game. This is one of the games that, maybe they can win. And that was just not the case. And he also commented on the Kayvon Thibodeau post-game interview, and he said, when you have players in the locker room say they did exactly what we thought they were going to do, that's even more insulting. That's what you gave the fans. It's just not good enough. It's not. That was a poor performance. And it started off the sack of Sam Darnold, the fumble recovery, but when they only got 3 instead of punching it in for 7, did not feel good about the Giants' chances after that. Really didn't. And then that only things got worse because, they could have been off the field, but then there was that pass interference call, and it was like this, and it was a big chunk. It was like a 40-yard penalty that set the Vikings up. Once Aaron Jones scored that touchdown, I'm like, yep, this is going to be a long day. Pretty much. Not good, but it is very telling when you got former players saying things like that, and especially Lawrence Taylor, who probably the greatest Giant of all time, is the greatest Giant of all time. And you got him saying something like that. And listen, I mean, I sent a voice message to my friends. I was like, Eli, can you go out there and play, please? Now, obviously I was joking, but let's be realistic. If Eli went out there and played behind the offensive line, because the offensive line I didn't think was great, and him being a statue, it would have been a long day for Eli if he was out there playing quarterback. But yeah, I would love to see JPP and Justin Tuck and Osi Umenyiora and LT and Carl Banks and Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz and Eli and Brandon Jacobs and Bradshaw, all those guys go out there and win us a game, please. Please. Because these guys can't do it. Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, yeah, keep those guys out there. Malik Neighbors, yeah, keep him out there. But a lot of those guys, yeah, take a back seat. Let the other Giants come in and play. Yeah, it's sad when you have Lawrence Taylor saying that. Because if Lawrence Taylor is saying something like that, that's a problem. And this is something else that I said, John Mara, as the owner, the decisions that he has made since they let Tom Coughlin go, and now and Tom Coughlin's time was up. But it's the fact that they have not been able to find good replacements for him. And they haven't really gotten it right at GM either. Because they got rid of Jerry Reese. They bring in Dave Gettleman. Well, you still had Reese and McAdoo. That didn't work. Reese was gone. McAdoo was gone. Then you bring in Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman. That doesn't work. You get rid of Shurmur, you still have Joe Judge. Joe Judge and Gettleman are gone. Now you bring in Joe Shane and Brian Dable. They make the playoffs their very first year, and you thought, all right, the Giants are turning it around. But they've gone backwards. They have gone backwards. And I have kept saying, you know what, I still think Dable and Shane could get it right. But the thing that's very concerning when it comes to Shane, one of the things that's very concerning is that you took Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau at the 5 and the 7 in that draft. And now Thibodeau is not a bad player. I don't think he's a bad player. But he has not lived up to his potential. Evan Neal looks like a bust. And that's a problem. Because we could say all we want about Dave Gettleman, but you drafted Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal looks like a bust. And those are guys you picked in the top 10 in the draft a couple years ago. That's not a good look. It's not a good look. And Brian Dable, I don't know what's going on, because you watch some of these post-game interviews, and it seems like he's reverting to the responses that Giant fans were accustomed to seeing with McAdoo and Pat Shurmur. I don't know. It's not good. It's not looking good right now. This is a very important game that the Giants have coming up against the Commanders because, again, if they lose this game, the fan base is going to continue to lose it even more because that's a team that they always beat. But it really is amazing how one game, like if they played against the 49ers and that happened, then you'd be like, all right, well, what did we expect? The 49ers are the best. The Vikings, although they have a good roster, the Giants should have been able to compete in this game. And they just flat out didn't as the game went on. So that's why you got the reactions that you did. That's why I reacted the way I did and will continue to do so. But, it's just not a good look. And again, I think this falls to the feet of John Mara. John Mara has not made good decisions. And, again, was in hot water kind of because of, unretiring Ray Flaherty's jersey and giving it to Malik Neighbors. Again, not blaming Malik Neighbors, but why are you unretiring a number? And look, I never saw Ray Flaherty play. But you don't unretire a number. That's sacred. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But again, some people will have it differently. But when a number is retired, it's retired. You don't bring that back again. But that's just what they decided to do. But Neighbors looked good. Neighbors was at least one of the bright spots. But it's just the Giants have been a mess for a long time. And there's been a few outliers, 2016 and 2022. But then what happens after those seasons? They go right back to square one again. They went from making the playoffs in 2016 to then being one of the worst teams in the NFL and having one of the worst seasons in their franchise history. And then you make the playoffs in 2022 and you think, this team's going to be even better. They get smoked by Dallas, losing 40-0, and that was it. They were more competitive towards the end of the year, and they finished 6-11. And the way this season started off could be heading towards the same kind of year. Which, I already had them at 7 wins. But, you finish with an even worse record than you did last year. Brian Dable's probably gone. And maybe Joe Shane is gone too. I don't know. This is what I think. I think that, if they finish with a really bad record, it's likely Dable's gone. But on the other hand, I just don't know because they gave Daniel Jones that contract, but Daniel Jones was not their guy when they first got there. Like, there's guys in college that they could try to get. You got Shedeur Sanders, you got Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers from Texas. Those are your 3 quarterbacks right there that, are going to be the top 3 guys coming out of college. Once we get to, the NFL draft. Already we're talking about the NFL draft, but those could be potential fits. Well, I don't know if I want to say fits, but potential, because we don't know how they would be with the Giants, but those could be who the Giants try to get if they finish with a bad record. And if they keep Brian Dable and Joe Shane, I think this would be their last opportunity. Go and get your guy out of the draft, and if that doesn't work, then you're gone. So, I don't know. There are so many different things that can happen. Because then on the other hand, it's like, if you let go of Dable, Bill Belichick's out there, reunite with him. So, I don't know. It's a mess. It's a mess. The Giants are a mess. And that's who I really felt bad for, is the players. You're honoring the Giants, you're honoring your history, and that's the performance you put on with those uniforms. Now, I kept saying jokingly, I wanted to go to this game to see those uniforms in action. And I kept making jokes like, yeah, they're gonna look they're gonna play bad. I was making jokes all around. And it ended up happening. Just like last year when I was making jokes about, hey, the Giants are getting hyped up this offseason, but then they're gonna get killed by Dallas. And that's what happened. That's what happened. And it occurred to me, I have never seen the Giants win a football game when I'm there. Every single Giant game that I've been to, excluding the preseason, I have never seen the Giants win a game. Never. Every time I've been there. But I'm usually there for different reasons. Like they played Brady, they played Rodgers. I mean, when they played the Cowboys, yeah, but the Brady and Rodgers games, I wanted to see them play Brady and Rodgers. So yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised they lost. But, against Dallas, well, I'm not surprised they lost that game either because Dallas owns them. But still, I thought they had a chance to win on Sunday. It just didn't happen. Didn't happen. So, we'll see what happens this week against Washington. But we're going to take our final break here. Let me know what you guys think, though, about what we just talked about. When we come back, we'll talk about the Steelers. What should they do at the quarterback position moving forward? I know I talked about it a little bit, but we'll talk about it again here to conclude the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Steelers, their quarterback situation ahead of their matchup against the Broncos on Sunday. So it looks like Justin Fields is going to get the start once again. And again, his stats were not impressive against the Falcons, but, made some good plays and, did what he was supposed to do. The Steelers got the win, and he didn't make any mistakes. But, if he continues to play, he's going to have better games, I think. Now, it really does make you wonder, what the Steelers should do. And, I said originally, look, Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. If he doesn't play well, then you go to Justin Fields. But now, because of the calf injury that Russell Wilson has been dealing with, that's changed things, because Justin Fields then got thrown in right away. The Steelers got the win. Now you're playing a Broncos team that, the defense looked decent against the Seahawks, but they got a rookie quarterback that's still trying to figure things out, and he didn't look great against the Seahawks. And now now Bo Nix is going up against the Steelers defense. Now, it is the home opener for the Broncos, so, that does help you get the home crowd behind you, but it's going to be a tough game for him. So, I think if, the Steelers win this game with Justin Fields starting at quarterback, because that's where it looks like we're heading towards again, I think you got to continue to ride with Fields. Because it would be really hard to pull the plug on a 2-0 start when you got Justin Fields playing quarterback. So what, you're just going to go to Russell Wilson? Because what if you put Russell Wilson out there and he plays, then you just go back to Fields. But, you don't want to do that. The Steelers got the win against the Falcons. If they start off 2-0, why are you changing things? Why are you changing things? It wouldn't make sense to do that. I think at this point you gotta ride it with Fields. And Dan Orlovsky, I wanted to read his quote. This is what he said on Get Up. He said, "If they find a way to win this game and their offense is functional enough, you don't look back." Yeah, I agree with him. Why are you going to pull the plug on this? Like, I know you originally brought in Russell Wilson to be the starter, and you got him on a cheap deal because the Broncos are paying his salary, but, if you got something good going on with Justin Fields, you keep that going. So, that's really my thoughts on it. Again, Justin Fields was not overly impressive, but, made a couple of plays. And the other thing, too, is the mobility. Russ doesn't have it like he did in Seattle. He's not the same player. And he didn't play bad last year, but he is not the same Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle. He's just not. And you know what? We live in an age now where, the pocket passers, they're dying out. There's a few of them left. Rodgers now with the Jets, he's going to be primarily a pocket passer because, at his age, he can't move around like he used to. Matthew Stafford is a pocket passer. I guess, one of the quarterbacks, obviously he'll move around when he has to. Like C.J. Stroud, for the most part, he's not someone that's going to be looking to run constantly. He mostly stays in the pocket, I feel like. But but if he has to move, he's going to move around. You got to have mobility. And if Russell Wilson's just going to throw from the pocket, that's not his game. What made Russell Wilson so dangerous is being able to, go off script and make plays. How many times did we see over the course of his career, he would scramble around, he would have all day to throw. The defense would be running after him. They still wouldn't be able to get him down. There's so many plays you could go back to. You go to the NFC Championship game against the Packers. That play against the Cardinals where he did he spun around a couple times and got it to Doug Baldwin for a big gain. That's just to name a few. There's also another play in the NFC Championship game against the Niners. There are so many plays you could go back to with Russ at the beginning of his career where he went off script and he made big plays by doing that. It's just throwing from the pocket, that is not his game. He's got to be moving around, and that's just not that's really not what he is anymore. So he's kind of limited now. He was Mr. Unlimited. Well, now he's Mr. Limited. Bad joke. But with Justin Fields, now is Justin Fields like this elite passer? No, he's not. That's something that he still has to work on. But you know what? He's got the mobility. That's what makes him dangerous. And they're going to use that to their advantage, the Steelers. They will. And they should. If Arthur Smith doesn't do that, that's on them. But to make this Steelers offense, a little more dangerous, because, right now, you got George Pickens, you got Pat Freiermuth, but you got to see some other guys step up too. And, they have a good running game. But, Justin Fields being able to take off with the ball and run for a ton of yards, that makes the Steelers' offense better. And if they go back to Russ, I mean, look, if he doesn't play well, then you go back to Fields. But you can't. The thing is, you can't be constantly going back and forth. Because at that point, then it's like, well, we don't have the guy. So, yeah, I mean, look, I didn't, I don't think we anticipated Russell Wilson to get hurt. But that's kind of changed things for me. Now it's like, I don't know. Now, if Fields goes out there against the Broncos and plays really bad, then that will make things easier for the Steelers to go back to Russell Wilson. But, if Fields wins here, Steelers start off 2-0, got to keep riding it with Fields. Got to keep riding it with Fields. So, we'll see how it goes. But I think that's really the consensus. And I think there's some people out there that probably still want Russ to be the quarterback. I get it. But, I mean, look, the way the Steelers' offense looked in the preseason, I mean, I didn't think they were going to win this game against the Falcons. But they did, despite not scoring a touchdown. But you know why? It's because of their defense. That is what is going to carry this team. Because we've had conversations in our production meeting. There's people that believe that the Steelers might win 5 games. I don't think so. Their defense is really good. They have the best defensive player in the league, in my opinion, TJ Watt. And as long as he stays healthy, he's going to continue to be a monster. And, they got other good players. They got Cam Hayward. You got Alex Highsmith, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got good players on this defense. The problem is the offense. And, they're not going to win a ton of games by kicking 6 field goals. It's not going to happen. You got to generate more points. And I think they will. But, it's good, though, at least, that you got a championship caliber defense to back up the offense. Otherwise, then I could see why you would say the Steelers, are going to finish with a bad record. But I think they're going to find a way to get those 9 wins. And already they're off to a good start. Because this was kind of a toss-up game with the Falcons. But they got it. They won it. To their credit, they won it. And you know what? Against the Broncos, I like their chances in that game as well. So, you start off 2-0. That's good. And right now, they're in first place. I know it's after 1 week, but everybody else lost. So, and the way the Browns and the Bengals look, I mean, they might be starting off 0-2. I think the Ravens will win this week. But, yeah, look. Keep stacking those wins early because that schedule towards the end of the year is rough. And we're going to talk about that like every week. But, yeah, I'm in the Fields camp. I think Fields should be the starter moving forward. And I think he's going to do better against the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos defense was, they made plays against the Seahawks, but I think the Steelers are going to win this game. And that's the case. I don't think don't go back to Russ. You ride with Fields. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about that. I mean, this is going to be a topic of conversation throughout the season, but this will really tell us the story. I mean, the Steelers are going to continue to monitor Russ throughout the week, but it looks like Fields is going to start again. And if he gets the win, Russ is the backup quarterback, in my opinion. So yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows. Give the other shows some love, like I always say. Enjoy the game tonight. Big game between the Bills and the Dolphins early here in the season. And, so until tomorrow, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.